listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is August 30th, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Wednesday?
Spencer, hello. Happy final week of 10.1.5 to you. We are on the precipice of patch and the final patch of the season, and it seems like there's some cool stuff coming. The consequences between the Classic Hardcore release last week and the impending patch that there's not a lot of breaking news or anything. We're just dying for that 10.2 reveal and PTR, which is obviously right around the corner, but not quite ready to come out of the oven yet, I guess.
Yep.
They did update, their CDN, Blizzard did, to account for patch 10.2. So it's coming. It's on their internal stuff, and we should see it, I don't know. Maybe they hold it back until after 10.1.7 is totally out the door, which is probably correct at this point. I mean, we're 6 days away now. What would be the point of muddying the waters? But you never know. I mean, we did have 2 patches on PTR at once earlier in Dragonflight, but anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying, it's kind of a slow news week because we're just in this bizarre holding pattern waiting for all these patches and releases to come out so we can get the next patch up on PTR.
Yeah, I fully expect that we'll see probably the release of 10.1.7, and inside of that release post, they'll be like 10.2 PTR coming up soon, and it'll be like that Thursday that it kicks off or whatever it is, right? Like that's kind of what I expect, based off of, previous patterns that we've seen. Man, yeah, it is, that pre-patch lull. We're expecting this content wise, as far as putting a show together for folks. We'll talk about what's going on this week. We'll talk about, the patch arriving next week and sort of like highlight the features that are going to be, landing with it. But otherwise, it's a regular show, like this is like a mid-season show in that sense of, hey, there's nothing super exciting happening yet with the game other than, hey, what do you want to finish up before the next patch lands is I guess the big thing, right? So, all right.
And weirdly, I think it's a space that we haven't found ourselves in that much during Dragonflight because the updates are so much. It's just like 10.1.5 was a little lighter on stuff to do because the big release was Augmentation Evoker, which some people would tell you ruined the game. I think people that enjoy playing Augmentation Evoker or with one would say differently. But, that was sort of a huge part of that release, and the content to do time rifts is just sort of chasing cosmetics, and it's fun to do, but it's not really grindable, and it's not like an aspirational kind of thing to do. So, 10.1.5 sort of had a lighter, like a shorter lifespan in terms of the content itself, I think, and I think 10.1.7 might be a little bit longer because we should be using Dream Surges to level up and gear up, alts and low gear characters and stuff. So I think that'll be cool. And, then obviously we're barreling towards the next huge release for the game.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a busy week next week. That's for sure, with folks checking out a whole lot of new stuff. So let's cover what's going on last week before we talk about what's going to happen this week and next. What did you get up to in the World of Warcraft thing? You spend some hardcore time out there with the hardcore release?
I wanted to. In my heart and in my brain, I intended to. I made my tune. I did not log her in.
Was it a rogue?
I made a human rogue.
All right.
On Defias Pillager. She exists, but she has never actually entered the world yet. I just hardcore servers launched in the U.S. Eastern time zone, launched 6 p.m. right that day. We recorded an episode of the show. I had to run out to a dentist appointment. I had to pick up my kids, and then I'm doing stuff with my kids and everything. Thursday's not a WoW night for me. It's not on the schedule. And then when I was done, it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna hang out with my wife and just do other stuff, and maybe I'll play Classic later. I'm kind of a night owl once everybody goes to bed, but then I just kind of didn't. And so I've just been so busy. It's a busy time of year, summer holidays and stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. a lot of social commitments and whatnot. So I haven't had time, unfortunately. I want to check it out. I feel like there's maybe a benefit to not being in that like day one wave of people checking it out, but also maybe that kind of spoils the magic to some degree, right? Like part of the cool thing about this is like having official support for it and having these servers launch together means you have all of these people trying to do this very specific thing, which is not really, you can't replicate that in any way if it's not a rule in the game, right? People could decide to make a hardcore tune whenever they want to, but no one around them necessarily knows that they're doing that. It doesn't impact the overall gameplay of people in the space, right? So that was like the difference here is everybody's playing by the same rules, and that's kind of cool. But I think I will jump in there at some point. I don't know when, man. I just try to think of like, okay, well, stuff is going to slow down pretty soon here, and then I'll have a chance. But that is not. I can't even lie to myself like that at this point in time. So, yeah. I mean, other than that, like really, I did not play a lot of WoW this week. We also, like I mentioned, I mean, we spoke last on Thursday last week, which was after basically my entire WoW week anyway. I didn't end up playing on Sunday because, again, social commitments and stuff. So I played some last night, and what we're trying to do was squeeze in some Mythic Experiments prog. Because, it's going to be a short week again this week for raiding with the holiday in the U.S. And, we're getting close on that fight to a degree. We got to get over that last hump of having the two bosses out at once. And we just haven't been able to do that. So last night, we went through and we did Heroic Sark. We're really powered up. I mean, we're killing these bosses fast. Even still, we're setting new records almost weekly on like Echo and on Sark. Which is weird, but I'm glad. It's cool that the fight is so reclearable on Heroic, just being able to let people swap tunes around or whatever. We didn't get any cool loot. No Crack Titan gems. I don't think we got any beacons even dropping last night, but whatever. It was still worth a shot. And then we spent the rest of the night on Mythic Experiments. And the problem that we're kind of having is Mythic Experiments requires some pretty meticulous play in terms of positioning and dispel timings and stuff like that. And I am rotating multiple people through the roster, like every time we look at this, and that's not really conducive to learning the fight, and that's sort of a consequence of just the overall structure of our team and, sort of our approach and everything, right? Like we don't have strict attendance requirements. I'm not going to punish people for not showing up to raids, everything like that. And that served us well in a lot of ways. But the problem is when you have people that are really pushing for Mythic prog, they don't understand from a leadership perspective that like, it's not the culture, it's just not what the team is. And that in order to really make legitimate Mythic progress, like we'd have to change some things kind of significantly. And I think that's showing up on this fight. Like the three easier fights in Abyss are, I mean, they're harder than their heroic counterparts, certainly. And they definitely require a level of throughput in order to defeat them. But they're not like the most challenging, first few Mythic bosses that we've seen in a raid. They're not by far, I mean, I've been in this cycle of like, well, let's try the first 1, 2, 3, 4 Mythic bosses for many years now. And these bosses are fun. The strats are pretty fun, and I think they're relatively straightforward. They're just more punishing, right? So that's fine. Experiments is a step up, and I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get there. I think we can, but the thing is we just need consistent pulls with a consistent roster, and we haven't really had that. Like last night, we didn't do as well as we had done last Wednesday. And that's a little disappointing. We're doing really good at the top of the fight, but then we're sort of just falling apart once the third boss comes down, and it's sort of the same pattern repeating itself with diminishing returns. So, that was that. I mean, tonight, I guess we'll see what attendance shakes out like. I don't think I have quite enough signups for Mythic, and it's that case of I don't really want to tag anybody in from maybe another team in the ZTH ecosystem or something, like, because you're burning a Mythic ID for literally nothing. We're probably not going to kill the boss tonight, even if we can tag in like 1 or 2 people. So it's kind of a weird etiquette question. We might end up just blasting out the rest of the heroic ID tonight and calling it a week, which I'd be perfectly happy with. I enjoy this raid. I think it's a really fun reclear. It looks cool. The fights are fun and pretty straightforward. The burden on raid leadership is, I would say overall lower than in a lot of places that we've had, where it's like there's not that many fights where I have to do very meticulous things with, you know, group comp and whatever. So it's a fun run. So if we're kind of in that farm mode, then fine. But we'll see. Like once we get post Labor Day and everything, people might be back from whatever summertime stuff they've been doing, and if we could dial in a consistent roster, I think we can get this boss and maybe, you know, Rashok. So that'd be fun, but I'm also not gunning for it. Dungeons this week, we'll talk more about it in a bit. It is kind of a rough week, and it's very comp dependent. And, you know, if you've been listening to the show for the last couple months or like attempting to check out the stream, you'll know I've been having really horrendous problems with my internet service. And last night was one of the worst nights I've had. So tried to step into a dungeon, and, I couldn't contribute at the level that I felt comfortable with. And we were having a lot of issues on a 21 tyrannical, and somebody had to step out for time. And so I just called it a night because I literally just like closed Discord and walked away because I was already really kind of frustrated from not at any one, but at the circumstance of like, I'm attempting to do this thing I enjoy. Yeah. I'm trying to play this game with my internet friends, and this, you know, the service that I pay handsomely for is just letting me down repeatedly. So, yeah, just kind of a frustrating night of WoW last night for a variety of reasons, but mostly because of tech issues. So it is what it is. But yeah, we'll talk more about the combo this week, but it's, to say the least, it's a bit less forgiving than last week was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about how the past 2 weeks have sort of been the easiest tyrannical into fortified weeks we've seen, and probably will see this season, given the timelines on things. So I'm hoping it comes around one last time, but that does mean we're quite far out from the next piece of content. So it's like a weird hope to have. You know,
I kind of hope so too. Yeah, I agree with you. It's longer than maybe what we're used to if we have like a third full rotation, but you know, the time of year matters too, to a degree. And I think BlizzCon timing is a thing we haven't had to consider in a few years, but I really don't think you want to do a big release right before BlizzCon. I feel like that's counterproductive for the team and for the players and everything like that.
It's always weird with BlizzCon expansion years. Like, it's so much fun, but you do end up with that, oh, the new expansion is going to step all over the last patch of the current expansion announcement. Like, that just tends to be what happens. So it's weird how to do that well, I guess, because you want to talk about everything. And so you're going to talk about, you know, the upcoming World of Warcraft patch, the final one of the big culmination of this expansion. But then you also want to talk about what's next. And so how do you do that without stepping on the current thing, right? It's a tricky thing. But they suffer with it every week. So, you know, every year, or every other year, I guess, is when expansions come out.
Right. I mean, they've had a reprieve from it because they've been running BlizzCons. But yeah, this is the first. So, you know, they got a couple years off, but now it is a concern for sure. Yeah. Because also, like, there's the expectation, right? If they're going to announce the expansion, they want to have a demo stood up on the show floor, right? Somebody's got to build that. It's not a version of the game that's ever going to actually exist like that, but it needs to exist for a weekend so that attendees can play it. And sometimes they do a thing where you can like play a version of it from home. Usually it's like a classic thing, but if there's like Cataclysm Classic or something, right, then that'll be a thing they have to stand up for virtual ticket users or whatever. I remember, it's just a lot of strain on the team.
Yeah, I remember us going out to PAX East Boston and playing the Islands demo that was there, right? That was back
in 2018, yeah.
Like it was one of those experiences where you're like, hey, yeah, you know what? Someone actually had to build this, put it together, put it on a test machine, have the, you know, you can only play for this period of time or till you hit this threshold content end of the demo sequence. So someone has to build the demo. It's a lot of work. You got to set up the show floor. You got to, you know, get all your developers press trained because they all have to be willing to actually speak with players on a regular basis if people bump into them. And you can't really be like a developer who some bumps into someone on the floor who recognizes them and goes, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to talk to you because I haven't been press approved. Like, that's not a thing, right? Like,
right.
You know, or sorry, I can't talk about that at all because I'm not press approved. Like, you have to get the press training. You have to make sure all that happens so that, you know, if someone wants to talk about the current game and not what's coming up next, you can do that without being concerned you might say something that's going to cost you your job. Like, it's a tricky system to get everything going. So yeah, BlizzCon's a lot of work. A lot goes into it. And I mean, we're seeing that on our end in the sense that we still haven't heard anything about what's going on with press stuff for attendees, press and media. So we don't know what's happening with that yet. So hopefully we figure that out soon too, because, I got to like book a flight and things if that's happening. So a lot of little things need to come together.
Right. It's always that last minute. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, there is so much that goes into that show from the WoW team, not just from like the company or, I don't know, like a production company or something. Like they do it themselves, and, they need to have stuff to show. And I think it's reasonable to assume that like 10.2 in season 3 is not the end of Dragonflight. Like I am sort of anticipating that they'll have like 10.3 in season 4 to talk about at BlizzCon, and that would roll really nicely into a Q4 calendar expansion in 2024, which would also be probably right after next year's BlizzCon. I mean, it's just it never kind of stops, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think there's from the way it seems to me, there's a lot more Dragonflight to play. And yeah, how do you manage the expansion announcement around that? And so I kind of suspect that, in terms of the stuff shipping, it's going to be held back until after the show, in terms of like 10.2, for example.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you didn't have a lot going on last week, I sort of was doing my wrap up profession stuff I need to do. I'm making plans for what's happening in this upcoming 10.2 to see what's going to, what my gameplay is going to look like in that period of time. I know right off the bat, it's not changing immediately, simply because I have a whole lot going on outside of game at the moment. But when it comes to 10.2 and rating content and everything like that, it's a new, we're coming into a new tier. So teams are looking for things. All the requests are happening again as far as whether or not I'm interested in something. So we'll see where I land on stuff, which could be exciting to do. So yeah, we'll have to find out. But let's jump into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week is the Dragonflight Dungeon event, meaning the Sign of the Warrior buff is up, where the final boss of each dungeon, or each Dragonflight dungeon, awards an extra item when defeated. This does not work on Mythic Plus difficulty, keep that in mind. There's a quest to complete 4 dungeons on Mythic difficulty, that could be Mythic Zeros or Mythic Plus, which rewards a heroic cache of Avarice treasures, so you get yourself some free heroic gear for doing that. Certainly worthwhile diving into if you, want to pick up that quest. Even just doing what some people call a world tour, where you sort of go out and just knock out 4 Mythic Zero dungeons, or the same dungeon 4 times, just to get the completion and get the reward. A lot of people are doing it. Probably now through Thursday is usually your peak time, between Tuesday and Thursday, to hop into those groups, and then maybe something over the weekend, where they'll just be geared players knocking it out, and you don't have to like stress over timing and speed and everything. It's just, let's just get this done. So you want the reward, certainly hop into the group finder, find yourself a group, or maybe grab some friends and get some Mythic Zeros done. All right.
Yeah, it's a cool event. Also, I want to point out this does work with Dawn of the Infinite. And there is some pretty cool loot from Chrono Lord Deos in Dawn of the Infinite, and you get an extra piece of it this week. Yeah. I believe that includes if you do the Undying run, if you do like the hard mode thing, you get an extra piece of that item level boosted loot. So
wow.
That's pretty cool. That's actually a really nice benefit for this event. I feel like this event's not as great as it used to be because it's kind of tamped down on, it doesn't work in Keystones, and it's like that's what we do is Keystones, right? Like you have trained us. The Keystones are the thing that we do in this game, and this doesn't apply to that. But yeah, I mean, it's great for M0s and for just kind of getting your feet wet in content with a tune or something, or if you're maybe fresh to level 70 if you didn't play Dragonflight at the start or whatever. It's you should definitely put it on your list if anything in that heroic raid item level range is appealing to you at this point in the season, because you go do some Mythic Zeros and get it done in, I don't know, an hour or something. Like if you have a team set up and just go around and just blast through them, I mean, that's pretty nice loot for that level of investment.
Yep. No, it certainly is. And man, oh man, yeah, that's almost like doubling the reward of doing the weekly event. So certainly worthwhile hopping into, especially if you're still trying to get that Undying, as Jason said, achievement. You might as well, take advantage of the extra piece of loot while you're at it. Aiding the Accord, obviously you want to pick up every week, depending on what week it is and which character you're playing, it changes up. So You might have gotten Community Feast, or you might have gotten, the sniff and digging, all that kind of stuff. Be sure that you're getting your Aiding the Accord done for the bonus reputation you can get out of that and rewards you can get out of that. The dungeon quest for fighting as its own reward is going on as well, so you can complete 5 heroic dungeons if you pick this up. Get yourself some 415 eye level trophy chests or 15 Drake Shadowflame fragments, as well as 250 reputation with 5 major factions, so that you can get some rewards that way. PvP quests for the week are Arena Skirmishes, Rated Battlegrounds, and we got Gravity Laps coming in as the Brawl. So if you're doing some Arena Skirmishes or Rated Battlegrounds, pick up the quest first, get those bonus rewards. As far as Gravity Laps goes, it was like the first Brawl we ever saw. It was Eye of the Storm, no gravity. Every minute, gravity just sort of turns off, and you can just float and swim around. And people will try and time out that, like, as that minute hits, they knock you backwards, so you go soaring through the air because gravity turns off, and just fly away is entirely a possibility. Or they knock you back into a position where you're not paying attention to your feet. When gravity turns back on, you just plunge to your death, which is another possibility. So a lot of really, fancy, tricky stuff people can do too around towers, like gravity turns off and you can get up a side you normally can't get up, and then start capping the flag. Some sneaky stuff you can do. So there's a lot going on with Gravity Laps. I still think it's one of the more less exciting brawls that's out there, but there are different ways to sort of take advantage of it. So if it's something you enjoy, you want to get yourself some extra marks of honor, conquests, and honor, you can win one of these Gravity Lapses and get the Something Different quest complete. So certainly something that you can check out if you're interested in that. We got the Zakali Elders, the big Dejarin duo down in Zeralik Caverns. If you're doing these world bosses, you get yourself some 415 eye level loot that are plate, shoulders, and waist, male feet and head, and leather chest and wrist as things you can get as rewards. So be sure you are checking all that sort of stuff out. And then the Strun Run, the Sky's Misery, is the other world boss that's up, dropping 395s. If there's something from there you're still looking to get, although at this point 395s are becoming less and less relevant with new patch stuff coming next week. As much as it's nice to try and gear up towards it, I think that we're pretty much at the point now where it's like you can kind of pass on the 395s. You're going to be getting, 415 base stuff pretty soon from just doing 10.2 stuff.
Yeah, if you're like brand new 70, this is a good thing to just go immediately do, I guess, because it's something, right? But it's not even upgradable, which all the Season 2 endgame loot is, right? So that also puts it a step back. But also, you get a fair chunk of rep for doing the world boss quest, which could help with Aiding the Accord. And if you're looking for, I don't know, maybe some Season 1 MOG, there's that stuff. But yeah, this is really quickly starting to age out of relevance, especially once the patch comes in. I mean, I did the old world bosses on like a couple of my alts, like immediately upon hitting 70, just to kind of roll the dice. But then pretty quickly, it's like, okay, this isn't really, it's not worth my time even to go out there and do that. They die really fast these days though, so that's cool.
Yeah. All right. Mythic Plus affixes are Tyrannical, Afflicted, and Bolstering. So bosses have more health and deal increased damage. While in combat, afflicted souls appear and seek the aid of players, and when non-boss enemies die, their death cry empowers nearby allies, temporarily increasing their damage by 20%. Okay, so Tyrannical Afflicted, kind of a pain in the butt. Let's just be clear, Afflicted has wound up being the healer's problem in a lot of these M+. It is the affix where 1 to 2 ads will appear, typically it's always 2, and you need to either dispel them or you need to heal them up to full to get them to be resolved and go away. They will still appear during bosses. And as Jason sort of pointed out, I think it was a couple weeks ago now, anything that adds to a boss fight, particularly a tyrannical boss fight, is a pain to deal with. It's an added thing that you have that pulls attention, pulls focus, and particularly one where people lean on the healer to take care of. This could be a problem for this week. Now, bolstering is, kind of a non-issue at this point in the sense of unless you are wiping out ginormous groups, you're not dealing with building a boss all that often because it doesn't increase health anymore. It just increases their damage. So yes, your tank might need to panic and move away from the giant mob when it gets buffed up because people killed everything else around it too quickly. But you can still slow and, stun and do things to this ad. The big spicy part of this week is Tyrannical and Afflicted. Jason, do you want to talk a bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up pretty well. I didn't really notice bolstering in what briefly I was doing last night, because without Fortified, the enemies aren't doing that much damage anyway. And, they've been good over the years about making these on-death effects not occur from little mobs that don't have a lot of health, like non-elites and stuff. I mean, you need to keep it in consideration. If you do have like a big pack of mobs and you're killing something early, then everything's going to be doing a lot more damage. Or if one thing's alive a lot longer than everything else, it's going to end up having a big damage buff. But it really just is kind of a throw-in. It's there, whatever. Afflicted is the big problem this week, and partially because it's comp dependent, right? I'm a warrior, so I just can't even help my group with Afflicted at all, which means I probably better be running my own group. If I'm trying to plug into a group, I don't know if anybody's going to take a flyer on the class that can't deal with this week's affix. It's just, that sucks that it works that way, It is technically a healer problem, but it's really great if other players can help with it, because the healer probably needs to heal or do some other kind of mechanic, especially on a tyrannical week. You will get these on bosses. You'll get it on, second boss of Underrot while Kragmaw's running around in circles during Tantrum, and everybody's got to scramble and run over the bloodworms, and the healer's got to keep everybody alive while they're taking the pulsing AoE damage. And then an Afflicted comes out, and then you got to burn GCDs and mana to dispel them or whatever. Having like a paladin or something is great for that. Obviously a lot of classes can help deal with that, but it sucks when you have classes that can't. It's, then again, you have something like Resto Shaman, right? Which is not like super in vogue this season, but it's great for this week because, Afflicted's out, let's drop a Poison Cleanse Totem. They both go away, it's tough. Afflicted's a very comp dependent affix for sure. And, Tyrannical does kind of put that brick wall in front of you at a certain point as you're going up. You are just going to hit a spot where like your group probably can't kill this boss. So Afflicted is going to make that trickier this week, trickier than it already is. So yeah, it's kind of tough. I think like the new affixes that came in this season, they're not, they're not terrible, but they're not really great either. Like Entangling is okay because it's just kind of whatever. It's pretty easy to move out of most of the time, and there's ways to cheese it with snare breakers anyway. So that's pretty good. And Afflicted is so ridiculously comp dependent, and then whatever the other one is, it needs CCs. Like I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head as we're talking, but that one is a little bit better because at least everybody can do something to it. You probably have a stun or something, an interrupt somewhere in your kit if you're doing a dungeon. You should, if you can. Otherwise, you're probably not having too much success in the dungeon anyway, right? But these things that just pop up extra elements into the battlefield with like nameplates that you have to interact with. It's very disruptive. And I think in some cases that matters more than others. But yeah, this week, like if you have any way to if you're not a healer and you're trying to run keys and you have some way to take the burden off the healer to get rid of Afflicteds, like do it. Whatever uptime that you're missing from running over 8 yards and, to get in range and popping a cleanse on an Afflicted will save your group a lot more than finishing up that rotation,
Yeah. The feeling for a healer is even better than when DPS actually turns and bops, the orbs that spawn, right? Like that's there's so many different opportunities that DPS can reach out with different affixes and help healers. And when it's something that the healer is, oh no, this person's going to die. Oh no, that person's going to die. Oh no, the whole group's dying. And at the same time, you're like, oh, but I need to dispel that thing over there. And I need to heal that other one because I only have one dispel. Who do I let die? Right? Because you got to deal with the affix. Because if you don't deal with the affix, then you run into a situation where the whole group dies. So, at some point, if you're, a rogue, for example, you might just find yourself dying over and over again this week in a group because the healer is just making triage calls. and you're the one that they chose. I don't know. Just put it out there.
Yeah.
That could be what situation.
It definitely can be. And that's why, it takes a team effort, I think. And I really just wish they figured out an elegant way to let every class have a reasonable way to counterplay every affix. I know that they want classes to have niches, and I respect that. I think that's a good design philosophy. Just the social dynamics of the game don't really work that way in practice. It's not really a problem for me. I will get people to do dungeons with me this week, and we may not have the best time we could possibly have, but I won't be shunned from being able to participate in an activity because I can't do the affix this week, right? And I think that's just kind of a problem. Maybe just make it so there's only ever one afflicted. Do we really need two of them sometimes, or most of the time? And sometimes there's one. Just make it be one, and then reduce that burden. You still have to pay attention to it. You can't ignore it, right? It doesn't really matter if one or two of them goes off. If one of them goes off, you're probably screwed. So I think it's punishing enough to just do that. But I don't know. It's gonna be a little gnarly out there this week, I think. But yeah, just make sure go in prepared. Set up your build so that you're ready to participate with afflicted if you can.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Good news, everyone. The Kalimdor Cup has been extended through this coming Monday, September 4th. I am super thrilled that they did, because it's a great event that a lot of people are enjoying, and not everyone has had time to go to all of the zones and do all of the races and all of the directions and challenges that you can do. So, hey, if you're still someone out there trying to get your Drake Watcher manuscripts or the transmog or the achievement for this, then, you got extra time. It's still around. You can do it this week through next Monday, and you have that whole extra chunk of time to finish things up and participate and have some fun with it. This is great. This is a great change. Thank you. Please. This is wonderful.
Yeah. The only thing it makes me think of is why shut it off at all? What's the benefit of shutting it off? It's just, I don't know. Is the service hinging on this thing going away? If so, then it has to be shut off. But I'm super glad they extended it. I think it's really fun, and I encourage you to check it out if you haven't. Even if you're not super into dragon riding racing, which I'm not, but I went and did all this anyway because I just got I got sort of sucked into it once I was back in Kalimdor, and all the old zones and some of the way the races are laid out are really cool. You race around these really, sort of iconic parts of these zones, and I really had a blast with it. And there's a bunch of stuff to collect, and they made it so you can do it starting at level 30. So you can easily get a whole bunch of alts lined up, even if you're not going to get sweaty and try to get all golds, right? You could still get a ton of badges just from doing silvers and stuff and doing the quest.
Yep.
And then you can get all the different transmog pieces and the Drake customizations and all that. And you don't have to have, even Dragonflight level characters to do it. You could do it at 30. So it's a great thing to do, especially while we're waiting for patch. And, there's sort of not some of the other stuff in game is lower stakes because of the stuff coming in with patch, like the Dream Surge gear. It's a great opportunity to spend some time on it this week. And I had a blast with it. It was really fun. Had I known it was going to run through September 4th, maybe I wouldn't have done it all in 2 days flat. But I have no regrets. I'm glad I did it all. I had a good time with it. And check it out if you haven't.
Yeah. Secrets of Azeroth, we highlighted on last week's show, which is basically that there's going to be clues unleashed every day or I can't remember what it is, every day, every week.
Something like that. It's every day, I think.
Every day, I think, yeah.
The 13th or something. It's 2 weeks worth of, breadcrumbs and these mysterious quest kind of pieces and stuff.
For some cool transmog and whatnot that you can earn is kicking off tomorrow. It's kicking off on Thursday, August 31st. So if you're someone who's been chomping at the bit for some regular content injection, this is going to be a daily thing that you can participate in, get your clue, figure it out. I'm sure the Discords will be going crazy with solves for all this stuff, and Wowhead will have a big tracker up for it and all this sorts of stuff going on. So if you want to be involved in the Secrets of Azeroth, you certainly can. So be sure you check that out. And then the big heads up and warning, FYI, we're coming to the end of the month. The September trading post is going away. It rolls over on Friday. That'll become September 1st. So if you're like, hey, there's something I really want this month, this is your last little chance to get it. If you're like, hey, I really want to bank up a whole bunch of points towards getting my, you know, big classic specific transmog set thing that's kicking off on Friday, be sure you get those points in before the month rolls over so you can have some extra bank for it. So yeah, it's going to be a big deal once we start getting to these sets coming out every month. So if you're interested, be sure you're wrapping up the trading post. This was the month that had the cool, you know, blood troll outfit as the big reward for finishing stuff up. I'm curious as to what the big maybe did they do the post already for what next month is going to be? They probably did.
No, they didn't actually, but we'll probably get it today. They're probably posting it as we speak right now.
You're right. Yeah.
So by the time we can talk about it on the show, it'll be like, yeah, we know, we already all got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we are in the last 2 days here for the Blood Troll track, the transmog, and yeah, this is the fall season rolling in, and all these class specific. It's what is it? Helm, shoulders, and belt, right, for the armor, and then a spec appropriate set of weaponry.
Yep.
Depending on, you know, what you hold when you're fighting. So that'll be starting up this week, which is, I mean, we talked about this at length a few weeks ago, but yeah, just keep that in mind. You know, if you haven't maxed out your trading post for August, you better get on that, because chances are good you're going to want at least something that's going to be on offer from these, you know, class specific and spec specific items coming in over the next few months. So get all the tender you can earn if you're not maxed out yet. And I think it rolls over like with daily reset on Friday, right? I guess you have like up until then, if you're really behind schedule, I think you have until daily reset on Friday. But yeah, probably try to do that if you haven't. I'm looking forward to this. I forget what is on the schedule for September. I'll let myself be surprised at this point, but I know they put it all out, but there were so many cool looking combos.
Well, I mean, we saw the armor sets. There's other stuff that's going to be in there. It's not just going to be an armor set sitting in there, right? Like, so I expect the trading post to still have cool things that are going to make people want to freeze things and carry things over for sure.
Oh yeah, you'll have the regular slate of other stuff. I would think my expectation would be if they would do it the way I would do it, would be you have like the new stuff and you have that really highlighted and featured, and then most of the other stuff would be like returning and or cash shop items, right? So that, you know, if people missed out on something they really liked, then they have a second shot at it from the first whatever 9 months or whatever we're into of trading post. And, you know, or maybe somebody has been eyeing something in the cash shop but they don't want to pay for it, then they can choose that if they're not crazy about, you know, the class stuff. Like, that would be cool. I think it would be less cool to be like, okay, here everyone, here's these really unique and super cool and specific items. And also, here's a ton of other cool new custom stuff that we made for this month. Good luck choosing whatever you like the most, right? Like, I feel like that's too much burden on us, because a lot of people have stuck with WoW over the years because of the collection elements and stuff, and people want to collect all the cool stuff. So I think the way to go would be drop these awesome new class-specific items in, and then fill out the rest of the post for the month with stuff that we've seen before or can get through other means. Like, I think that would just feel more fair to players. It's like, okay, you get to decide where your focus is, not like, hey, what do you want to miss out on, right? Which is, I think it might kind of feel like if there's a lot of cool new stuff besides these other items.
It's, you know, the issue of too plentiful the amount of fun things to do and gain. Right? It's such a weird issue to have of like, there's just too much fun stuff. Stop it.
Right. And the problem with post is, with the trading post, is like, well, you only get X amount of tender. That's it. That's all you're getting. It does seem like, you know, they do that week in WoW post now, like on Mondays or whatever. And this week's did mention a thing that looked like there was going to be a new transmog set bundle on the shop coming out this week. And I'll bet you that's going to include Trader's Tender. And so just buckle up for that whole discussion.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if we saw a bundle for probably the cost of a set. I would imagine is what we'll probably see a bundle for. It'll be
like 500. Yeah.
It'll be like $25 or $35 for an entire amount of tender that would just buy you a set or something like that. I would not be surprised.
It'll probably be like the transmog set and then 500 bonus tender. That's my thought. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up being.
Again, this is probably going to be announced within a few hours of us recording this, or maybe tomorrow or something. So I'm sure that by next week, this discussion will be hilarious.
Yes,
but we do have a huge new trading post inbound, and we know that they have, well, we don't know, but from what they are telling us, it seems like they're going to be announcing a new cash shop transmog set this week. So I'm just kind of putting 2 and 2 together here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. All right, hotfixes. Oh, actually, no, before we jump into hotfixes, we're talking about the end of the month, which means we're coming up on the beginning of the month. And something that happens at the beginning of every month is Darkmoon Faire is going to be kicking off. So that's September 3rd. That's going to be this coming Sunday. So if you're someone who's like, ooh, I am excited about, getting my dance toy because I did my dance achievements, or getting the dirigible done because I got enough tokens, or wanting to go see a band and get some extra experience and reputation for being out in the world, by all means, check out Darkmoon Faire. It's going to be happening September 3rd until 9th. So if you're someone who's wanting to hop in on that, get in there and do it for sure.
Don't forget your profession, skill, and knowledge. I mean, you probably don't need skill anymore, but you might need knowledge. Yeah. I no longer need profession knowledge on my main.
Oh yeah.
I have maxed out blacksmithing as of last week. I got to shut off my checklist week aura. That felt really nice. Because I've been looking at that for months, just making sure I get my knowledge maxed out every week. Blacksmithing was rough, man, because there's a lot of patterns. You can make every single piece of armor and like every imaginable kind of like weapon that would be made out of metal, right? So it took a long time. I mean, I was pretty diligent about it, and it took from November up until August, basically. I may have missed a few points here and there, and I didn't really like grind knowledge shards, but Darkmoon Faire is a huge bonus. I think it's an extra like 3 points of crafting knowledge, per event. So don't miss out on that for sure. The quests are pretty straightforward out there. It won't take you very long. But if, professions have paid off for me immensely in this expansion so far, in terms of being able to make really powerful gear for my own tune without too much hassle, in terms of being able to power up my teammates by making gear for them, and being able to make coin off of crafting orders. So, just get out there, next week, is starting Sunday at some point, and get your knowledge for the month if you still need points in any part of your spec.
Yeah. As far as hotfixes go for the week, inside Avarice, Echo of Neltharion, they fixed an issue where Volcanic Heart could target players with corruption. I'm sure a lot of people are happy to see that go away.
Yeah, well, this was a really stupid overlap. I can't really think of seeing this happen. It might happen if you have like some people dead or whatever, but Volcanic Heart is the 15-yard circle that goes out around people, and it goes out on like 3 targets at once. And corruption is the thing that people have where they need to kill the faceless ad to pop its bubble so that everyone can attack it.
Yep.
So if that goes out on somebody who then needs to reposition out of the way, then the whole thing starts falling apart. You're going to do way less damage than you should to the faceless dudes, and then you can't progress the fight. So this is a nice fix here.
Yeah, if you're a melee DPS in particular, I can see needing to run up to the ad to damage it, but also needing to run away from everything to draw it. It's bad news. So glad that got fixed. In Time Rifts, Lich King's Remorseless Winter was targeting melee players too often. I'm sure melee players will now rejoice, because that must have sucked. I didn't experience it as someone who does not play melee.
Still far and away the worst Time Rift boss. Like, even after these massive nerfs, it just it feels so bad compared to the other ones. It's like it's cool to revisit the idea of the Lich King fight and Defile and all that, but compared to the other ones, it just feels awful.
All right. Well, as far as PTR goes, the ping system got itself some even more things added. They added a new cursor for when the ping wheel is active, so it's really clear that your ping wheel is active. The ping wheel opens quicker, which is always nice to have that animation work faster. And the options, the ping system, for the first time will pop open the tutorial. So if you actually open the ping system for the first time, you're getting a little tutorial as to how it works. So they added that in as well. So PTR coming along. I mean, just little final touches here, obviously, before we see the launch. But glad to see some more adjustments to UI that makes things more enjoyable for everyone else.
Yeah, just some UI polish here for this new system coming in, which I think seems good. It seems like a good idea to have that, have the tutorial built into it and everything. I think this could be a really useful feature, especially for like raid leading and stuff. So looking forward to checking it out and playing with it and seeing how I can incorporate it. And yeah, I mean, they've dressed it up a lot over the course of this PTR. They've been adding functionality and fixing bugs and stuff, and in like every published update, I think. So, but that was it for last week's build. So obviously everything is pretty much dialed in. I mean, I believe the build on PTR is a release candidate at this point. So if you want to see like what the patch is going to be like on Tuesday, then you can play PTR right now.
Yeah. All right, Fury of the Incarnate arrives September 5th, so things that you should be paying attention to. You also want to mark your calendars for the beginning September 12th to follow Velen's prophecy to reveal a new future for some of the Draenei people. So it's like not just the 5th, there's also the 12th, the week after this launches. We're going to get another hit of content and a sort of quest thread for you to follow, right, Jason?
Yeah, they put out a blog the other day about Fury Incarnate, and it was sort of just all the same stuff that we've heard before, right? Like Dream Surges, okay, we know. Night Elf and Forsaken Heritage Armor, we know. Mm-hmm. Heroic Dawn of the Infinite, we know. New campaign chapters, we sort of knew. There was the graphic with the tier campaign on and everything. Ping system, we knew. Eastern Kingdoms Cup, we knew. So it's like sort of, why do they keep just publishing this thing that runs down what's in this relatively small patch over and over again? But the breaking news, or whatever you want to call it in here, was that yes, there's going to be a quest chain rollout on September 12th. So the week of that reset, I guess, in your region, there'll be a new quest line that involves Prophet Velen, and I assume this is going to unlock the Sargerai customizations for Draenei, like the red skin with the green kind of fell highlights.
Nice.
So, because that was like data mined, but it hasn't really been discussed anywhere officially from what I can remember. So this is my expectation is that that'll be the result of this question, which is really cool. So that's they're kind of, sorry if I'm ruining the surprise or whatever, but this is what I'm expecting is going to happen. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. That's a nice feature. And I mean, the way that they've done, we talked about it a bunch even last week about the heritage armors and stuff. When they put these little slices of questing in, that the result is some kind of customization unlock for your characters, they're usually some of the best questing because they're sort of like laser focused on a particular set of people or characters or whatever within the storyline. They're not really tied to very specific parts of the overarching story or the main timeline. So they kind of exist in this own little bubble that I think they've done great with that kind of questing. So now the problem is I don't have a max level Draenei. So if you have to be max level for this, then I don't know. I think I must have a level 60 Draenei kicking around. Yeah, you must have a level 60. Because I think I leveled up everything by the end of Shadowlands, at least on Alliance side.
You probably did the allied race stuff for Lightforged, right? Like,
yeah, but this is probably. I think this is not Lightforged. I think this is just standard Burning Crusade Draenei. Is it what this is?
What it has to be? You think it has to be a standard Burning Crusade? It can't be a Lightforged? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a Lightforged customization. But I guess the question is, do you have to do the questing on a Draenei, or do you just do the questing and then you unlock it and then you can use it on a Draenei? Because sometimes, sometimes they do that where it's like, okay, well, you can play this on anything, but then you only get the benefit if you play this specific type of character. So, I don't know. We may not know until September 12th on that one, but that was a cool little inclusion here. I like how they've kind of slipped in these little features in the last couple little patches. The Secrets of Naxxramas thing in 10.1.5, the Secrets of Azeroth that starts this week, and whatever this Prophet Velen little breadcrumb thing is for Fury Incarnate that wasn't really discussed. Like, it's cool.
It's like the pre-secret for the secrets thing that's kicking off.
Right, yeah.
Did you read our blog post? Nice. Did you really read our blog post?
Right. Did you just look at the Twitter graphic and keep scrolling, or did you read the blog post? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how tight those secrets are in the coming days for the actual secrets event. So we know that obviously the Kalimdor Cup is wrapping up on September 4th. So the other date to mark down is October 4th, which is when the Eastern Kingdoms Cup kicks off a month later. It's going to run until the 17th so far, although we'll see what ends up happening after that. So if you're someone who's, hankering for some more dragon riding back in the old worlds, you're going to get some more Eastern Kingdom stuff coming a month after the Kalimdor Cup stuff wraps up. So start practicing now with flying your dragons near little twigs inside of cities and areas, so that you can try and, get, or maybe even walk a path. Like go out down a Stranglethorn and like walk around and try and figure out where this course could be laid out. Maybe plan some things ahead of time, get your racing skills ready. Because it's coming up October 4th. So be sure you're checking that out. And it's going to be a whole new set of transformations, I imagine, along with this. So it's going to be fun, man. I'm looking forward to it. I want a Stormwind race. I want an Ironforge race that goes through Ironforge, through like those like upper little like openings that go into the center forge. I'm sure there's going to be stuff where you're diving down in the trade district and then going up into one of those. Yeah. Like, I'm sure, right? Like,
put a tree inside one of them too. Why not? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great. I mean, obviously, like the old school zones, man. I don't think vanilla was the pinnacle of playing WoW, but you cannot top the old school zones in terms of that. That connection as a player. Like if you played back then, exactly. Yeah. Like it's the main character, and it always will be. And everything to me, everything stems from that. And I mean, Kalimdor is kind of my jam as a Night Elf main from back in 2004. But I mean, obviously, there's a lot of really iconic stuff in Eastern Kingdoms, and a lot of cool opportunities to set up races. I mean, just think of like Blackrock Mountain.
I know.
Like whatever they're going to do
inside of the mountain, like the inside of the mountain. You're going to start outside, go inside the mountain. It's going to be a whole course inside of the mountain. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. Hopefully there's 2 separate courses because with the daycare there's like little races for each of the whelplings. Yeah. And all the whelplings have different abilities. And the Black Dragonflight whelpling, her race is out in Burning Steppes, and you have to like fly through the doors, and it's horrible because the Black Dragonflight is like really fast but doesn't maneuver, and so you got to try to wiggle in between those doors. So hopefully nothing like that where prestige is on the line, like an achievement. But the only thing with this is I am going on an extended vacation a few days after this starts, so I better stick to my 2-day schedule of like just blast through the dragon riding cups on Azeroth and just get it over with, because I'm not going to be around for that whole second week, and even if it gets extended, I won't be back yet. So that is a little bit of a concern for me. But then again, if there aren't unique rewards for this, and I'm not entirely sure, or at least if there's not anything as expensive as an entirely new Mog set, then maybe I don't. I don't know. Like I won't feel as much pressure if it's like, okay, I need like, I don't know, 100 badges or something. Like, okay, it's going to be whatever it is. I'm going to have other concerns and stuff in that window of time anyway. But really cool. I mean, I guess my hope would be if we ever get to a point where dragon riding is just enabled in Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, leave these races, just have them be there.
Yeah,
they should just be a feature that people can do. It's fun. It's a cool addition. And if it doesn't break anything, then why not just leave them there and let people work on their achievements and stuff on their own schedule?
Totally agree. It's something where I'm surprised they're going away. I'm surprised they aren't just starting and then just staying. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I don't know. Maybe there's a plan for it down the line. Maybe they wanted to release them for a bit, then change them and bring them back. I don't know. But I don't get why they are only a limited time thing that they're doing for now. And then obviously I imagine their end goal somewhere down the line is to have dragon riding, or at least that style of flying, just be available wherever you're actually able to, fly around on a mount. It can just be a choice. I have images of being able to do the dragon riding mechanics on the witch's broom from the Halloween event, because that would be hilarious and fun to be able to, sort of nudge your broom on to go faster and faster to zip around on this thing that can't get caught on anything because it's like smaller than your character that you're zipping around on. So
yeah, that would be top tier for trying to gold those races.
I know,
because you never hit any terrain at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, just get the witch's broom going. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I love Eastern Kingdoms. I always have. I mean, I was a human main back in the day, so that's where I grew up and was able to experience as pretty as it was over in over, in Kalimdor. I very much was an Eastern Kingdoms guy. Once the game launched in beta and stuff, I did the Night Elf thing for a bit, which I loved. But when the game launched, I did human. So yeah, it's an area that I've always loved, especially the Ironforge area with the snow. As a Canadian, I can relate. So it just felt like home.
It's the world outside your window.
Exactly, all the time. So yeah, it's something that I look forward to with this kind of stuff. And yes, as Jason mentioned, he is going to be going away for a few weeks in October. We have plans around how that's going to work for episodes to make sure you're still getting your weekly stuff every week. So don't worry about that. We'll still have shows happening. So we will make sure that you can still, have an episode or two, even if I have to make Jason make notes while he's away. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't make Jason make notes on his vacation.
Because I'd make him in advance and then I would leave.
That's right. That's sure. I mean, you could do that if you wanted to do that. That'd be great, actually. So, yeah. Anyways, he hasn't had an actual true vacation really since he had kids. So this is a big deal. This is the first major trip. So we're
yes, it's the first time. We've been doing the show weekly for 6 years or something.
Yep.
7 years.
Yep.
7 years.
Yep.
And yeah, it's the first time where I've had a scheduling thing where it's like I literally cannot be in front of a microphone for 90 minutes this week. Like, even when we were moving a couple years ago, moving states, and I was in a spare bedroom at my in-laws' house, propped up in the corner, we still recorded every week. But yeah, we will have some pre-records and stuff, hopefully, and other stuff, so that the schedule stays consistent. But yeah, it will be the first time that I won't be recording on the mic, on a weekly basis. I don't know, since maybe a BlizzCon or something, where maybe we had to do a pre-record and then we had some show. Even at that, we'd usually record when we got back. So
we got an episode.
We'd always have an episode, but sometimes maybe we wouldn't record new stuff right after we got back. But I don't know. It's somewhat unprecedented, and hopefully we'll be more precedented from now on, because it is a good thing to do in your life, is to take a vacation and stuff. So you never know. But part of the reason that we can do all of that stuff and keep the show consistent and everything is because of who?
Our patrons. Yeah, no, our patrons 100%, and our listeners in general make it all possible. But if you're someone who wants to support the show, you can certainly hop onto our Patreon at patreon.com/thestartingzone and support the show. I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons for everything they contribute to the show and help us create the content that we do. I'm going to give a shout out to Alianas, Arajian, Butter, Celian, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, and Vespin. Thank you so much for everything that you give, as well as all of our patrons give towards our show. And a huge thanks to our newest patron, James. James, welcome. Look forward to getting to know you over in the Discord, startingzone.com/Discord, if you haven't hopped in there yet. We always are glad to meet new people, see new people come in to support the show, have returning people support the show, hear from the people who support the show. So thank you again to all of our patrons.
Absolutely. Thank you, James, for hopping in and supporting the show. And thank you, all of you, patrons past and present, for all the support over the years. And we really do appreciate it. The vibes around the show have been really great throughout really the whole course of this expansion. I mean, I think we've had some great conversations with listeners via the Discord and just from the feedback on the show or whatever, wherever we get it. It's been a weird few years covering the game, but Dragonflight has really, I think Dragonflight has really hit a lot of important notes for people that are still invested in WoW. And there will always be frustrations and nothing will ever be perfect, but it has been fun being on this ride, whereas, before Dragonflight came out, in the waning, in the really dog days of Shadowlands and in the waning days, it was if this next thing doesn't land, man, what is even the future of this game? Is anybody going to still care about this? Not even on the level of, are we still going to want to play it? Or are we still going to want to talk about it? But the game by its nature depends on people playing it together, right? And there are going to be enough people that care about it to keep it vital. And obviously, it feels like engagement around the game is not really at the level that people who care about it would want, but I don't know. I mean, the game has been super fun. It's been super rewarding. I feel like I get something out of playing it in this expansion, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. So, we've it's always great to hear from, people around the community who listen to the show and have these kind of similar experiences that we do.
Yeah. I mean, we started the show because there wasn't one out there that we thought met the need that we wanted to hear in a show. So, that's why we made the show what it is, right? It was why when Mick was handing over the reins, we had a plan of what we wanted to produce every week. And we're so glad that so many have come along for the ride and wanted to be involved, and, more episodes to come and more exciting things as we close in on episode 600. And it's been a heck of a ride so far, and we're looking forward to, more roads to travel with it. All right, folks, if you've enjoyed this episode, another way to support the show is going over to your iTunes or Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. They really help out our show, and frankly, we love hearing reviews written by our listeners. This one comes in from Adam T. Jones, entitled, "Love the Show," says, "Just found this after playing WoW since late BC. Love the information in the show and the feeling of the community it brings. Keep up the great work, guys." Well, thank you very much, Adam. We will certainly keep up the great work. And I'm so glad that you're hopping into the community and feeling like it really sort of brings the positive vibes when it comes to World of Warcraft, is what we sort of aim for most of the time. We're not, short with our comments when something's bothering us or we have feedback for it. But in general, we like the game. We enjoy the game. We want people to enjoy the game too. So we aim content around that, right? This is what's going on. This is what you can do. And I'm glad that you're digging that. So yeah, and you've been playing since late BC, man. You've you got the full actual Wrath. You probably have your knuckle sandwich achievement from back then, man. You've got it. You're way back. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for writing in. Appreciate you taking the time and letting us know. It really does help a lot. We've been getting a ton of reviews lately, and it actually really shows up in terms of helping the show grow and find an audience, find new listeners. Unfortunately, it is the podcast ecosystem, right? We don't have a YouTube or whatever. We have all these other channels, and iTunes is the thing that really feeds it. And so the iTunes reviews, we just highlight one a week, but a lot of people have been writing in, and we really do appreciate it. We will read them all on the show, and it does really help the show find a wider audience, and that means hopefully more people in our community hanging out and sharing their experiences with the game and maybe having fun together. So thank you so much for doing that. And it is always rewarding too to hear from veterans like Adam. I mean, Adam's been playing since 2008, 2007 maybe. This is somebody who obviously has a deep experience with the game and knows a lot about it, and so to have somebody that already has all of that sort of experience and knowledge around the game to find the show valuable, that means a lot, in terms of how we put it together and how we approach it, because we want to bring value to all different kinds of players. I mean, WoW is a really broad game. It's impossible to zero in on one correct way to play it or whatever. There is none. You can do whatever you want with the game. It's huge. It's very broad and it's very deep. And so, we try to make a show that anyone can enjoy no matter how they play, which sometimes means we go a little bit lighter on some topics than some people would like. But, it's all in service of just having a really well-rounded show that anybody who's interested in WoW can hopefully get something out of. Yeah.
Yeah. For those who are curious, because Jason mentioned it in there, as far as us not having a YouTube, there are a lot of different platforms that podcasts go out on. Our podcast actually technically launches on 1,080 different platforms. That's how many there are out there as far as apps and things go. There's 1,080 of them. So
why are there that many? That's a question for another day, but there are that many.
There are that many. So that's what I get the stats back from. We're pulling stats from 1,080 different places to go, how many people listened to this episode and what happened with it? So it's kind of hard to get accurate numbers and pull everything together for it. So when we get iTunes reviews and they boost us up those charts that I talk about, it does start to centralize our listener base a little bit more, because that's where a lot of places pull from. A lot of those 1,080 go to iTunes and go, I want content. Give me content from you. And so as we raise up those charts, we become higher on that priority list for those other places to grab. Which means we become available on more places, which is really nice. So please continue to leave us reviews. As Jason said, we'll read them here on the show. I love having more reviews that aren't being read yet, because it means we're going to read them. It's always disappointing when we get to like, hey, leave us a 5-star and we don't have any. It's like, oh, that's kind of sad. Whereas it's like every week we have one. I love it. I'd love to have a 5-star every week. Every week. I'd love it.
Yeah, we go through. It goes in cycles. It's very cyclical, just like WoW itself. It has these cycles.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap up episode 594 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can go over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you'd like to reach out and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at thestartingzone or thestartingzone.com/Discord. You can join in there and ask us stuff there. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores with an S on the end /thestartingzone to check out all the sweet designs you can get on mugs and stickers and shirts and stuff. And Jason, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Not in as many places as I would like you to be able to, but you can find me over on Twitter. I'm over there at Shieldwald. I'm going down with the ship, I guess. I mean, I don't know, whatever. Honestly, my day-to-day Twitter experience is not very much different than it ever has been, except for there's just less stuff being posted on it. But I am over there. You can also find me on Blue Sky if you look hard enough, but I am not posting over there yet, but you could come look for me. And I want to plug the video channels, but there's no reason to because my internet doesn't work well enough for me to stream right now. Mm-hmm. But if you go to twitch.tv/Shieldwald or youtube.com/Shieldwald, you will find me there. And someday, maybe, I will return to streaming WoW gameplay to some degree. But I think I'm just shutting it down for the next little while here while I see if I can get stuff straightened out. Because my upstream is precious and it needs to go to the game. And even that isn't enough lately. So I don't know. But check out the Twitter, check out those channels, and
Yeah, I will say you can go back and watch his VODs, which is a nice thing to do. If you're looking to actually chill out and raid with him, you can certainly check out some of his previous content that he's put out. If you're looking to check out Jason's stuff. If you want to find me, you can find me over on Twitter at Spencer_Downey. And you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD or on youtube.com/@SpencerHD. I haven't streamed anything in quite a while, but who knows? Maybe I'll start doing something again soon and we'll figure it all out. But with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening and jobs done.